we're hoping that he's going to soon be able to follow through on his stated objective of signing a piece of legislation that we've been pushing for quite some time. It essentially would say that your concealed carry license should be treated the same way as your driver's license. So wherever you go in the country, it should be valid and honored.
That's the
That would
HR
be
38, right?
HR 38 is the current bill number in the House. It hasn't been introduced yet in the Senate, but that's coming soon, we think. And it would make such a huge difference. There's one person comes to mind right away is a lady, black single mom in South Philadelphia, two kids, two boys, and she had been working at a convenience store. And when she closed it at 2 in the morning, she ended up looking at the wrong end of a gun twice within a month. That prompted her to go get her own concealed carry license. Not very long after that, she didn't know a whole lot of the ins and outs of this issue, and certainly didn't know that it wasn't going to be valid from state to state. And she went into New Jersey to follow up on a job lead, and driving very, very early in the morning or late at night, if you wish. Nobody else on the Atlantic City Expressway, as she's on her way to the job interview, she's pulled over by a cop. And she knew she was driving the limit because she'd been very carefully watching that. He never issued her a citation, and yet she spent 43 days in jail because she answered truthfully when he asked, which he had no business asking, do you have a gun? If she had had the permit, the license, as per the law that's pending right now, nothing would have happened to her. She'd have been fine. So it'll make a big difference in the lives of real people who are not criminals, who are just trying to protect themselves as they go through each day.
It sounds like a great piece of legislation in that sense. Certainly would help prevent more tragic stories like what happened to that lady. Some people are going to criticize it because they might think that it gives the federal government more control, and maybe this isn't going to necessarily be bad as long as Trump's in power, but then it might be used by future regimes that would be anti-gun. What would you say to answer people like that?
This is a bill that basically, in addition to honoring the Second Amendment, telling states to honor it, is based on the Fourth Amendment, which says that states must honor the acts of other states. So that means that your concealed carry permit would be good in all the other states. It's not telling the states to do anything except not to do something. It's something that Article 4 of the Constitution does actually mandate, and what this does is execute a constitutional provision which itself is not self-executing. So I don't think we're advocating a bill that in any way does violence to the Constitution. It's language that in the Constitution that fully supports what we're trying to do. It doesn't really mandate anything to the states except keep your hands off law-abiding gun owners.
I'm curious on the other side of the spectrum. So if this bill gets passed, what about super anti-gun, super liberal places like San Francisco, Chicago, New York City? What if they refuse to comply with it and keep arresting people anyways? And this creates some sort of a standoff or a rift between cities and states versus the federal government, who would be presumably enforcing this. I'm kind of curious because we do have a ideologically split America from the last voting results.
Arguably, that could happen. If it did, I think they probably should expect a visit from several federal marshals to execute a habeas corpus for the person they've illegally incarcerated. And I think that, they themselves would be putting themselves in jeopardy. It would likely prompt legislation that would penalize state officials who would violate this law. Right now, to my knowledge, there's no there's no penalty provisions in this law. It just simply says do it. And if they want more, I think with a President Trump, they could very likely expect to see more. It would also underscore just how anti-Second Amendment and anti-self-defense such officials are, because these are people who have a lower crime rate than the police of any particular jurisdiction. These are the choir boys and choir girls of our society, and to go after them is just adding more insult to injury.
Yeah, also, Trump might do what he's done with, or said he's going to do with the sanctuary cities, hold back funds that would certainly get states and cities' attention, might cause them to enforce that or afford those rights to other state residents for certain.
Seems to get their attention. I think you're quite right, and that would be a possibility. It's not in the bill, but certainly to the extent they're getting funds from the federal government, it's always been supposed that if you take money from the feds, you kind of got to do what they say, or you lose the money.
Yeah, that's the way it goes.